What if everything you were taught about success was never meant for you? What if the reason money has felt distant, inconsistent, or strangely out of sync with your intelligence isn't because you lack discipline, ambition, or talent, but because you've been walking a road that was never designed for the way your mind works? If you are an Aquarius, this question has followed you quietly for years. You don't talk about it much. You don't complain loudly. But deep inside, there's been a recurring doubt you've never been able to fully silence. How can I see so far ahead and still feel behind? How can I understand systems, trends, people, yet struggle to turn that insight into stable wealth? Why does the conventional path to money feel so suffocating, even when it technically works? By 2026, these questions stop being abstract. They stop being philosophical. They become unavoidable. Because 2026 is not the year Aquarius finally works harder. It's the year Aquarius finally stops trying to win at a game they were never meant to play. And that is exactly where the money begins. But not in the way anyone expects. Not through the paths you've been pushing yourself toward. Not through the goals that looked impressive on paper. Not through the versions of success you tried to convince yourself you wanted. In 2026, Aquarius money and career growth comes from a direction that feels almost uncomfortable at first. A direction you once dismissed. A direction you underestimated. A direction that didn't seem serious enough to build a future on. And yet, it's the only one that works. To understand why, we have to talk about the strange, often misunderstood relationship Aquarius has with money itself. Because Aquarius doesn't fail financially for the reasons people assume. Aquarius struggles because they see too much. Aquarius understands, at a very deep level, that money is a system, and most systems are outdated long before society admits it. From a young age, Aquarius can feel it. The rules don't quite make sense. The incentives feel backward. The ladder everyone is climbing seems attached to a wall that will eventually collapse. So while others are motivated by status, safety, and external validation, Aquarius is motivated by meaning, autonomy, and long-term impact. And that difference changes everything. Aquarius doesn't chase money for comfort alone. They chase the freedom money represents. The ability to think independently, to move without permission, to create without interference. The problem is that most traditional career paths demand the opposite. They reward conformity. They punish deviation. They value execution over vision. And Aquarius is not built for a life where their highest value, original thought, is reduced to a line item on someone else's spreadsheet. So what happens? Aquarius adapts, but only halfway. They take jobs that pay the bills, but drain the soul. They pursue careers that look logical, but feel hollow. They downplay their strangest, most original ideas because they don't see how those ideas translate into income. And slowly, a quiet fracture forms. On the outside, Aquarius appears capable, intelligent, and doing fine. On the inside, they feel underutilized, unseen, and oddly disconnected from their own potential. This is why so many Aquarians experience delayed financial success. Not because they lack ability, but because their abilities don't fit neatly into existing boxes. And until 2026, that mismatch creates tension. Years of experimenting. Years of trying different roles. Years of almost breakthroughs that never fully stabilize. It can feel like you're circling something important, but never landing. Like you're building skills without a clear container. Like you're accumulating insight without a system to monetize it. This phase has been frustrating, but it was never wasted. Because 2026 marks the moment when everything you collected starts to connect. And it starts with a fundamental shift in how you relate to money. In previous years, Aquarius often held an unconscious resistance to money. Not hatred, not fear, but distance. Money felt uninteresting, too small for the scale of ideas you wanted to work with, too limiting for the kind of change you wanted to create. So you told yourself stories. I'm not motivated by money. I care more about purpose. I'll figure out the financial part later. But in 2026, that mindset quietly dissolves. Not because Aquarius suddenly becomes materialistic, but because Aquarius finally understands something critical. Money is not the opposite of freedom. It's the infrastructure that protects it. In 2026, Aquarius stops seeing money as a distraction from purpose and starts seeing it as a tool that allows purpose to survive in the real world. This realization alone changes how you make decisions. You stop avoiding financial structure. You stop undercharging for your insight. You stop treating your most valuable ideas like hobbies. And this is where the unexpected path begins to reveal itself. Because the money of 2026 doesn't come from doing more. It comes from repositioning what you already do. Aquarius has always been collecting something. Ideas, patterns, connections between unrelated fields, observations about people, systems, and future trends. You've done this naturally, often without realizing its value. While others specialized narrowly, you expanded laterally. While others mastered execution, you mastered synthesis. While others followed trends, you noticed where trends were headed next. For a long time, this didn't pay, because the world didn't know how to use you. But by 2026, the environment changes. The economy shifts away from pure labor and toward insight. Automation replaces execution. Information becomes abundant, but meaning becomes scarce. And suddenly, Aquarius is no longer strange. Aquarius is necessary. In 2026, money flows toward those who can explain complexity, anticipate change, and connect dots others don't even see yet. And that is where Aquarius steps into their real career identity. Not as a worker, not as a cog, but as a translator between worlds. Between technology and humanity. Between innovation and ethics. Between future possibilities and present decisions. This is why the money comes from a path no one saw coming. Because it doesn't look like a traditional job. It looks like sharing insight instead of performing tasks, guiding decisions instead of following orders, building personal intellectual ecosystems instead of climbing corporate ladders. For some Aquarians, this emerges through content creation, not shallow trends, but deep, thoughtful perspectives people return to because no one else articulates reality the same way you do. For others, it shows up as consulting, teaching, coaching, or advising, not from a place of authority, but from clarity. You don't tell people what to think. You help them see what they've been missing, and that skill becomes invaluable. But here's the twist. The path that pays in 2026 is often the one you once treated as secondary. The blog you never monetized. The insights you shared for free. The conversations people kept coming back to you for. You may have thought, this isn't a real career. This is just something I'm naturally good at. This can't be where the money is. In 2026, those assumptions collapse. Because the world finally catches up to what you already knew. That value doesn't come from effort alone. It comes from perspective. And Aquarius has perspective in abundance. Still, this transition is not instant. Early 2026 feels quiet. There's no dramatic breakthrough yet. No viral moment. No overnight success. Instead, there's alignment. You begin making choices that feel internally consistent. You stop forcing yourself into roles that require constant self-betrayal. You start building around who you actually are, not who you were told to become. This is subtle, but powerful. Because for the first time, your energy stabilizes. You're no longer leaking motivation. You're no longer constantly questioning whether you're on the wrong path. You're no longer splitting yourself between survival and meaning. And when that internal conflict dissolves, momentum builds naturally. Opportunities start finding you, not because you chase them, but because your clarity makes you visible. People begin to seek your opinion. They ask how you see the future. They want your take on complex problems. And slowly, money attaches itself to those conversations. Not as pressure, but as recognition. Yet this is also where 2026 tests Aquarius. Because once money starts appearing through unconventional channels, the old fears resurface. Is this sustainable? Is this legitimate? Should I go back to something safer? This is the critical moment. The point where Aquarius must decide whether to trust their nature or retreat to familiarity. And this decision determines whether 2026 becomes a turning point or just another almost. The challenge isn't lack of opportunity. It's the temptation to abandon the path just as it starts working. Aquarius has always been ahead of the curve. The danger is leaving before the curve catches up. By mid-2026, the pressure intensifies. You see others following predictable paths with predictable milestones. You feel the weight of time. You wonder if you're being irresponsible. But here's the truth no one tells Aquarius. Your timeline was never meant to match theirs. Your success is nonlinear by design. And the path you're on now, quiet, unconventional, deeply aligned, is the only one that can scale without destroying your spirit. This is where the first real financial breakthrough appears. Not as excess, but as sufficiency with dignity. Enough money to breathe. Enough stability to plan. Enough recognition to stop doubting your worth. And once that foundation forms, something irreversible happens. You stop negotiating with your own value. You stop shrinking your ideas to fit other people's comfort zones. You stop pretending you don't care about money. Because now you understand what money actually represents. Not ego, not greed, but proof that your way of seeing the world has a place in it. And this realization sets the stage for the second half of 2026, where Aquarius doesn't just earn differently. They redefine what career success even means. Aquarius finally steps onto the path they once ignored, and the world begins to respond. Once Aquarius realizes that the path they ignored is the one responding back, the question is no longer whether this way works. The question becomes whether they can stay with it long enough. Because the moment something finally starts to click, Aquarius faces a very specific test, one that has nothing to do with talent, intelligence, or opportunity. It's the test of trust. Trust in a process that doesn't look like anyone else's. Trust in growth that feels quiet instead of explosive. Trust in value that doesn't need constant external validation. This is where many Aquarians have stepped off the path in the past. Not because it failed, but because it didn't feel dramatic enough. Aquarius is used to thinking in big leaps, future revolutions, massive shifts. So when progress shows up as steady income instead of sudden fame, as loyal clients instead of viral attention, as respect instead of applause, it can feel underwhelming. But this is exactly what makes 2026 different. Because in 2026, Aquarius finally understands something subtle yet profound. Real power doesn't announce itself. It stabilizes. As the year moves forward, your career stops feeling like a question mark. You may not be able to explain your job in one sentence. You may not fit neatly into a single title, but you feel something you haven't felt before. Grounded. Your work begins to form an ecosystem. One thing leads to another. One conversation opens the door to a collaboration. One idea becomes a framework others want to learn from. You're no longer forcing outcomes. You're curating alignment. And money follows that alignment in a way that feels almost respectful. It doesn't demand that you betray yourself. It doesn't require burnout as proof of worth. It doesn't come with the constant anxiety of being replaced. Instead, it grows because people associate you with clarity. And clarity is rare. In 2026, Aquarius becomes someone others rely on, not because you promise certainty, but because you help them navigate uncertainty. You're the one who sees around corners. The one who asks the questions no one else is asking yet. The one who can articulate what everyone feels but can't explain. This is why your income becomes tied to your presence, not your hours. You're paid for how you think, not how long you work. And this shift changes your relationship with effort entirely. You stop equating exhaustion with productivity. You stop believing struggle is required for legitimacy. You stop glorifying scarcity. Instead, you start designing your work around sustainability. And here's where the second major financial shift occurs. Aquarius stops being reactive. In the past, money often arrived in bursts, followed by gaps. Moments of hope, followed by uncertainty. Success, followed by doubt. But in 2026, you begin building structures that hold your value over time. Not rigid systems. Living ones. Projects that evolve. Platforms that grow slowly but deeply. Reputations that compound instead of reset. This doesn't make you rich overnight, but it makes you unshakable. And unshakable is far more dangerous than flashy. By late 2026, something else becomes clear. You are no longer chasing opportunities. You are filtering them. You say no without guilt. You walk away without panic. You choose alignment over expansion. And paradoxically, this restraint increases your income. Because scarcity energy leaves your decisions. People feel it. They sense that you don't need them, and that makes your yes meaningful. This is when Aquarius steps fully into their role as a future-oriented professional, not bound to one industry, not trapped in one identity, but anchored in a way of thinking that remains valuable even as the world changes. And yet, even at this stage, there is one final challenge, the most difficult one of all, letting go of the identity of almost. For years, Aquarius may have unconsciously identified as someone who is perpetually on the verge, almost successful, almost understood, almost stable. This identity is comfortable in a strange way. It explains the past. It justifies the struggle. It protects you from fully claiming your place. But in 2026, this identity no longer fits. Because the evidence has changed. You're no longer guessing whether your path works. You're watching it work. And now, you must allow yourself to be seen as someone who has arrived on their own terms. This can feel vulnerable. Success exposes you in ways failure never did. It invites expectation. It invites visibility. It invites responsibility. But Aquarius is ready. Because this version of success doesn't trap you. It expands you. You're not locked into a role. You're trusted for a perspective. You're not dependent on one source of income. You're supported by a network of value streams connected to who you are. You're not afraid of change. You are change. As 2026 closes, the transformation becomes undeniable. Money no longer feels like a contradiction to your values. It feels like confirmation. Confirmation that intelligence doesn't have to self-sabotage. Confirmation that originality doesn't have to starve. Confirmation that freedom and stability are not enemies. And perhaps most importantly, confirmation that you were never behind. You were simply early. Early to see the flaws in old systems. Early to resist paths that no longer made sense. Early to build something quieter, deeper, and far more resilient. The world just needed time to catch up. And now it has. The career you're building may not look impressive to everyone, but it feels right to you. And that's the difference. Because in 2026, Aquarius doesn't measure success by applause. They measure it by alignment. By waking up without dread. By working without self-erasure. By earning without losing themselves. This is the wealth Aquarius was always meant for. Not excess, not dominance, but sovereignty. The ability to choose. The ability to think freely. The ability to contribute meaningfully without being consumed. So if you are an Aquarius stepping into 2026, remember this. The money coming your way is not a reward for fitting in. It is a result of finally refusing to. The career unfolding before you is not proof that you were wrong to be different. It is proof that difference was the point all along. And the path that leads you here, the one no one saw coming, is the only path that ever truly belonged to you. You didn't find success by becoming like everyone else. You found it the moment you stopped trying to be.